right, here we go. Week 4. This is it. Okay. This is the final week. I've asked, like I've done, every week now, that we actually do the tasks that I've assigned. And the first thing we need to do is review those tasks, and we don't need to go through them item by item because they're real familiar to me at this point. But there's a purpose in why I do this each week. You need to take it upon yourself to kind of evaluate, how you've done on these tasks, the activities. You heard me say that, the secret is to be just more consistent and do the activities. So, how have you done on all these activities I've asked you to do for a month now, or near a month? Those open house results, how did you do in the open house last week? And then, what's real important to you would be to follow my advice on what I said over this last week, to have contact with 3 different salespeople and learn from them. What did they do that you liked? What did they do that you would never do, to a customer or a client? And I do sales seminars, and most of the things I learned in sales have come from other salespeople. And I want to stretch your imagination a little bit here. I'm going to get your minds going. I'm going to give you one example, then we're going to launch into week 4's activities, all right? I learned from, and I'm going to, instead of telling you a 3-minute story to make the point, I'm going to do it in like 60 seconds. I learned from a car salesman in 1978 things that I began using in real estate that made me quite a bit of money. When I drove, I drove this fancy sports car, and I was really vacillating. Can I really afford this? Should I do this? Does this make sense to me? And we're out driving around this Ferrari, all right? And the salesman says to me, he said, as long as we're out, I've got time if you'd like to. Is there anyone you'd like to show the car to? I said, really? I could do that? Well, there's the end of that story, all right? I paid more for this Ferrari than I had the condo I was living in. But I sat down the next day, and I had a legal tablet, and I wrote down everything that John, that was his name, everything John had said and done that maybe brought me to the point where I bought the Ferrari. And I learned a great deal. And I'll just tease you one little thing. Here's what I'm after, trying to get you to learn from other salespeople. In real estate, I had never been introduced to the idea, on occasion, if I'm working with a buyer and they're looking at a house and they're just, they're just not sure, I begin to ask buyers, is there anyone you'd like to show the home to? Would you like to bring somebody over here maybe later today or tomorrow? Get their opinion on the house. Here's what I learned. Friends, siblings endorse a sale. Parents destroy a sale. So if they say, hey, could I have my sister look at it? You bet. I'll make that happen. Because the sister's probably going to say, oh, God, you love living in this house. Oh, we could do this, we could do that. If they say, yeah, could my parents come and look at it? Absolutely. But you know what I suggest? So we don't waste your parents' time? Why don't we see if we can even get a deal together? Let's see if we can even make an offer that's acceptable to everybody involved, and we'll make the sale subject to, your parents taking a look at it in whatever, 48 hours or so. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Because you know what else I learned? Parents are reluctant to void a sale once there's been an emotional commitment from the children and the other party. Did I say this? Will make sense to you? So, is that clever? Is that slick? No. To me, that is understanding human nature, because a great salesperson does nothing more than get the customer in a position to make a decision whether they choose to purchase or not. That's what a great salesperson does. A great salesperson does not sell something to someone. They put them in a position for them to make a decision. They put them on the fence so they have to go one way or the other. Does that make sense to you? That's what great salespeople do. And you use sales skills to develop that. So learn from these salespeople. I could not emphasize more strongly how I feel about that. So we're going to talk in this last week about listings, the lifeblood of the of the industry. We got to have listings. We all know that. Even in slower markets, nothing happens without inventory. Nothing. And so we've got to have listings. And you need to ask yourself, why will people list with you in today's market? It's because they've got to be impressed with your competence. You've got to have that strong relationship, so when they get a referral from someone, they listen to that person. They put a lot of trust in that person. So we're going to talk about the most important question I've ever learned to ask sellers. Without anything, even I don't even know what number 2 is. This is how important number 1 is. The question you ask the seller when you walk into the home, good friend, total stranger, makes no difference. When you tour the home, warm up, whatever you feel is appropriate. When you sit down at the dining room table, I ask them some form of this question, and that is, what are the 3 most important things you want to discuss? What are the 3 most important things you'd like to talk about tonight? That is my listing presentation right there in 1 sentence. Here's what I learned. When you ask someone the 3, there you are again, prioritizing their response, what are the 3 or 4 most important things you want me to cover today? What would those things be? The most experienced person out there watching this series, the very first time you experiment with this question, I will tell you what your net result will be. And that is, you will reduce your listing presentation time instantly by at least 50%. You will quit telling sellers all the things you've learned are important, and you will only tell them things they what? Want to hear. What a novel approach to sales. And I didn't do this for the first 5 years I was in real estate. And then I was in a seminar listening to my mentor, a guy named Mark Masivic from Las Vegas, Nevada. I learned more from Mark than any person in this industry. And in 1982, a lot of years ago, Mark Masivic said these words. I wrote them down verbatim, and I came back to my town and I began selling real estate differently the next day. You see, what Mark Masivic said that day was this: don't try to be the answer to people's prayers until you know what they're praying for. I just want you to resonate the logic that you just heard. Why would you think you know what they want? And the more experience we have, the more success we've attained, the more we feel we know what sellers want, and we base our presentations on that experience. Huge mistake. The pre-listing package goes back to the dialogue we had in week 3. The power of the packaging itself. A pre-listing package, you've got a checklist of what goes in it. Many of you are with companies and franchises that have a tremendous amount of information. Good for you. I had a checklist. Perhaps you have your own checklist. I had a couple things on there, maybe a little unique to some other people. I've got number 11, my advertising questionnaire. Number 12, my remodel or sell flyer. What is an advertising questionnaire? I asked sellers 2 questions when it came to advertising. 1, which features do you feel should be included advertising your home? 2, which features do you think we should not include in the advertising? I learned years ago that one of the single biggest reasons we advertise people's homes is simply to keep the seller happy. Yes or no? If that's the truth, does it make sense to you that the seller is more likely to be happy if you let them help you build the ad? You tell me what you think we ought to put in the ad. And I don't want to be flippant here, but the truth is, it doesn't really make a lot of difference what's in the ad, because the ad doesn't sell real estate anyway. A lot of you don't want to accept that, but it's the truth. So give them, you know what else it did? Give them some ownership of the process. Let them help you build the process. I show them market time versus selling price. This is from the National Association of Realtors Economics and Research Division. It shows us what everyone already knows, and that is the longer a home is on the market, the less it finally sells for. It's one thing to tell people things. It's another thing to what? Show them things. These statistics help me get a well-priced listing right up front. The next page, I show in my pre-listing package homes in the same price range, same general area, but homes that were expired listings, a term we use in real estate that's unheard of in the real world. And so I don't use it. I've never used the term expired listings. When I print them out, these are not expired listings. These are homes that failed to sell. One of the cautions that I throw out to you for consideration is do your best to fight the temptation to speak real estate-ese. We lose the consumer when we do that. Food for thought. And then I go out there and I tell them the most your home is going to sell for in today's market is $300,000, and they tell me about the $50,000 they spent the last 2.5 years on room additions and air conditioning, swimming pools, kitchen remodels, landscaping. They want to take the $50,000 and do what with it? Right on top. Okay, you said 300. That makes it 350. We want to leave room to negotiate, so we're thinking like 4.25, something like that. And I'm sure some of you have been there. And when I say to them, just because you spend $50,000 on improvements the last 2.5 years doesn't necessarily mean you get all $50,000 back. Is that the truth, by the way, in today's market? As soon as I say those words, the atmosphere right there at the dining room table changes instantly. I am no longer their advocate. I am now their adversary. Doesn't work. So I began using what I called remodel or sell. I show them the different things people do to their homes for improvements. The middle column is the improvement cost. Forget that. You can't compare one part of the U.S. to another, Canada to the U.S., Australia, New Zealand, Japan, all the different places I go to teach. Forget that middle column. You need to find the cost column for your local market area. You with me on that one? So forget the middle column as far as don't lock into those numbers. And then the one on the right-hand column is important, and not the only important one, and that's the percentage recoverable. Now, where did it come from? The Institute of Real Estate Appraisers. That's where it comes from. Find out what the recoverable amount is on improvements to homes, and then you can lay it in front of the seller. And it's not you telling them they're only getting 40% back for their landscaping. It's the appraisers telling them that. And it's printed on a piece of paper, which gives it instantly more validity. Yes or no? So, I ask sellers, do you plan on interviewing more than one agent? If they say yes, I suggest two things. Why don't you do yourself a favor? Let me go first. Use me as a comparison for the other agents. And secondly, why don't you have one set of questions? You ask all of us the identical set of questions, because whoever you're most with their answers, impressed with their answers, that's probably who you want to list your home with, which makes a tremendous amount of sense to a seller. So in my pre-listed material, of course, I give them the questions to ask everybody. All right? Now, they're clearly slanted towards me, but look how simple they are. Example number 3. What do you know about the market in my area? When I'm asked, what do you know about the market in my area? My answers are laced with what? Going back to week 1 statistics. My competence screams through to the seller. Most agents are going to be lacking a message of competence. Biggest complaint sellers have. The biggest complaint sellers have. We list their home. They have to call us. We have got to stay on the offensive. We've got to stay on the offensive. I've had dozens and dozens of listings at one time. I know the stress that comes with having lots of inventory and trying to keep these people happy till the home sells. What I'm going to suggest to you is that you call them once a week. Once a week is all you need to do. Now, you're hearing from someone who's had a great number of listings, so I hope you hear this. The significance is not calling them just once a week. The key is to call them on the same day each week. That's the key. Sounds like something really innocent and simple. Trust me when I tell you, if they know they're going to hear from you every Wednesday, if something comes up on Monday, they will almost always wait for the Wednesday phone call. Does that make sense to you guys? Right now, what many people are experiencing in this business is that every time the phone rings, they shudder because they're afraid it's another one of my listings calling because no one's looking at my house. You can eliminate almost all of those phone calls if they know they're going to hear from you on a certain day every single week. But you know the real power, given what I said a few minutes ago about asking people, you ask them which day they want to be called. You ask them. You tell me Monday through Friday the best day to reach you. By the way, hear what I just said? Monday through Friday. Don't do what I did when I first started doing this. So what's the best day to call you once a week? Oh, Saturday. Good. Okay, right. You steer them to Monday through Friday, and then I ask them for a 30-minute window period. You give me a 30-minute window period. Tuesdays, give me a 30-minute window period. 5 to 5:30, done. I will call you every Tuesday between 5 and 5:30 until your home sells. And then I finally learned to say these words. And we're getting in well into week 4. You know, we're getting a little overloaded, maybe a little bit. I hope these words don't just float right on by. I hope you hear them. Is a huge turning point in my career. When I said to them, contract signed, button everything up, walking out the door, and I say to them, okay, now our understanding is I'm going to call you a minimum every Tuesday between 5 and 5:30. I want you to know, given the market conditions we have today, as we've discussed, it's very likely that I may call you on some Tuesdays and I have what? Nothing to say. Remember those words. Because the single biggest reason we do not call our sellers with enough frequency is because we have nothing to say. Every 2 weeks, I sent to my sellers what I called my seller's activity report. It's a reporting period in a 2-week period of time. And it says, during this period, our records indicate your property received ad calls, sign calls, showing appointments, previews, that kind of information. The most important part of the form is the bottom half, and that's new listings on the market this period and new sales this period. It's a miniature market analysis every 14 days. Homes in the same area, same price range. Here's what's going on. Because the truth of the matter is, for many of us in our marketplace, we take a listing today, a month from today, we're further behind than where we were the night we listed it. There's more homes, there's been 7 more listings, and there's been 3 sales. We've lost ground. What you're looking at right there in your workbook is the single strongest and most successful system I ever created to get price reductions on my inventory. Most agents wait too long to give sellers this kind of information. Is that a fair statement? I gave it to them every 14 days. Made my job much easier, made my life much less stressful. Pricing. I want to give you the 2 strongest pricing strategies I ever utilized in my own career. The first one I'm going to give you, I can't even put into words how strong this was, how much money this made me, how well a job it did in getting me pricing my listings correctly. When I go out there and meet the seller, I tell them there are 3 prices for every home. There's 3 prices for every home out there. And we need to discuss every one of them. You see, the first price we need to discuss is how much you would like. We need to get that right out in the open. And they say to you, well, we'd like $300,000. Now, obviously, I'm making up numbers which are not going to be appropriate to all different parts of the world, in the country here. So just kind of play along with me. Well, we'd like $300,000. Hear this now. Listen carefully. I don't care if it's your best friend. I don't care if it's a family member. You're sitting there at the kitchen table, and they say they'd like $300,000. Their mindset almost always is, you are the enemy. Maybe a strong word, but they don't believe you're in their corner. Their mindset is, he or she is going to try to get me to price it lower than I want. Is that fair to say that? Because of that, follow these words. I go out of my way, using an analogy we can all visualize. If there's a net, they see them on one side of the net, they see us on the other side. You with me? I go out of my way to make sure they know I'm on the same side of the net. So I say to them, I'd love to sell it for $300,000. I'd love to. And I'm sincere when I say that, because I would. I'd love to sell it for $300,000. I'll even go so far frequently to say, you know why? The more it sells for, the more what? I make. Let's not keep this thing a secret. I want them to know we got the same color uniform on. Are you with me on this one? But then I say, however, I owe you the truth. The truth is, in today's market, we're probably not going to get that. So the second price we need to deal with is the probable sales price. I know you'd like $300,000. Love, quite honestly, if we get $235,000, $245,000, somewhere in that range, we'll be doing well. And I know you don't want to hear it, but I owe you the truth. But you know what? There's a third price, and it's really the only one that counts tonight. It's not how much you like. It's not even what I say to probably sell for. The only price that really counts is how much to list it for. That's the one we both, the three of us, we need to focus on that price. How much to list it for. And I'll take you back to week 1 video. In week 1, the DVD, I said to you, one of the very first things I said to you was to learn these statistics. And one of the statistics halfway down that page was the list price, sales price ratio. So I can sit there in front of the seller and say to them, today in your price range, in your area, the list price, sales price ratio is 95%. That means the average seller discounts their home by 5% in order to make a sale. What that means, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is that we should not price the home more than 5% of what I say the probable sales price will be. Do you follow what I just said? You take them on an educational journey on how you actually derive through a mathematical equation a dollar amount to list their home for. Because what most consumers feel we do as agents when it comes to pricing their home, they think we pull a number out of the air. Educate them, take them on a journey with you, increases your message of competence. Here's my favorite pricing question I've ever learned to ask people. I ask sellers this question: are you willing to sell your home for fair market value? Are you willing to sell your home for fair market value? It's very difficult for a seller to look you in the eye and say, oh no, we won't sell it for fair market value. That didn't even sound reasonable to an unreasonable person. But here's what they do say. Well, yeah, we'd sell it for fair market value, but we're not going to give it away. So apparently you have the same sellers I had in my career. Every seller says that. And I wrestled for years on what to say to a seller when they said to me, I'm not going to give it away. And finally stumbled across the words that made me a fortune. What I said to them when they said we're not going to give it away, I said to them this question: at what price would you consider it to be giving it away? You see what we do for a living? We do our best to try to find out what the seller's what? Bottom line is. And we jump through all kinds of hoops to get to that. That question right there gets you to their bottom line. At what price would you consider to be giving it away? Marketing. There's so many different ways of marketing. You know, in this 4-week program, all I can tell you, the most important thing is that you need a marketing checklist. You need to know in black and white on a piece of paper, what are the 20, what are the 30, what are the 12, what do you do to market a home? I'm not going to go into that. You've got the obvious things. If you look at my marketing checklist right there in your workbook, you'll see it's got the most blasé things, like put a sign in front of it, get your little brochures and flyers printed up, do the open house, your caravans and tours, internet exposure, different multiple websites expose it on. You come up with a marketing checklist, because if you don't, it's very difficult to sit in front of a seller and show them what you're going to do to sell their house. Here's what made me a lot of money with my marketing checklist. Notice on the right-hand side, there's a column, and that column is for date completed. Every time I did one of those tasks, I put the date I completed it, and I would email it to them, fax it to them, whatever you use, get it to them immediately. Because here's what I discovered about sellers. If they don't see what you're doing to sell their home, they think you're doing what? Nothing. Make it abundantly clear to them. Here's what I'm doing. If you want to guarantee future leads, I'm going to give you one last thing here in week 4. If you want to guarantee future leads, I rank what you're going to see on this, and I debated. It's never been in my 4-week program before. And I debated, and I felt, you know what? This is easily in the top 5 things I did my entire career. Some of you are very new, so maybe that's not even appropriate yet. But I hope you hear the message. This is my system on how I followed up with people when I sold them a home. I call them the day after the closing, and I thank them for the opportunity. I call them 1 week to the day from the closing. Make sure you write in your notes, to the day. Hey, Bill. Hey, this is Rick Deluca. Hey, listen, I realized a week ago today is when we closed on your transaction, on your home. I just wonder how things are going, any problems, and anything I can help you with. I then call them 1 month to the day. Hey, Shirley. Hey, Rick. This is Rick. Hey, listen, I know it's a month ago today is when we closed on the house. How's the first month been? Things going okay? Any problems I need to know about? Something I can help you with? I then call them 6 months to the day. Hey, Wayne, Rick Deluca. I was looking at my calendar and realized 6 months ago today is when we closed on your sale. How do you like the neighborhood? How do the kids like the school? What's it like living over there in that part of town? Not a surprise to anyone. The next call is on the what? The 1-year anniversary call. When I say, hey, Kelly, happy anniversary on your house, guess what? A year ago today is when we closed on the sale. How you guys been? If I haven't already impressed them, the next idea blows them away. Blows them away. And that is, I call them on the anniversary date of the sale every year for the rest of my career. I call them on the anniversary date of the closing every year for the balance of my career. Now, I didn't start doing this until my 3rd year in the business. So longest I ever called anybody was 13 years. And when I called people and said, hey, John, hey, Rick Deluca, guess what? 6 years ago today, when you bought the house. And now I'll go back to one of the very first things I told you in week 1. Your database, your sphere of influence, the right-hand column. I said, make a note of how you originally meet them. So I can say, John, can you believe that it's been 6 years ago in May that we met at that? And he goes, God, you remember that? Yeah, it's right here in front of me, John. It's right here. You know. No, you leave that part out. Don't tell him that. Sad but true. It doesn't take a lot to impress people in this age of our society. Is that true? Customer service is a thing that rarely exists at a high level. You have the opportunity to provide a superior level of customer service that'll generate more and more referral business than you can even imagine. So here we are, week 4 tasks. There it is. Tired of seeing it. Get in the office early. Expand that database. Get your market settings down. Make your calls. Write those notes. Listen to the DVDs and the CDs, and take that top page of lunch. Schedule another open house. Put together your pre-listing packets and draft a business plan for the next 12 weeks. 12 weeks, not 12 months. That's what I want you to do. You do that. You do these activities as I've laid out for you over a 4-week period of time. Does it stand to reason that if you did them and then you just begin to repeat them, because after 30 days things become a what? A habit. You will have solid work skills. You will have a higher return on your investment of your time and energy and money. And this 4 weeks period of time will have hopefully flown by, and your career will be dramatically impacted just in the past 4 weeks. So take it seriously. I thank you for your involvement. I want to thank the people here today who helped me film this. And I want to thank the individual people that are watching these DVDs. Treat this as your job. Give yourself a sense of accomplishment. Check off the activities as you do them. It'll do more for you than you can even begin to imagine. So with that, you're on your own now. Okay, you're done.